Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of Wardle Restorations. Now, today's video is going to be a little update on my Ruston 88DS. Over the last few months I've managed to get on with a couple of little jobs, as well as having the starter tank inspected and just a few other bits just to improve it slightly, especially as we're getting to the summer period now, and I'd like it to look a little bit more presentable and at least all function correctly for the rest of the season. But before we get into that, I am going to give you guys a little update about what's been going on around the railway like we did last time, and I'm also going to tell you a little bit about our live streams that we've got going on, that live stream regularly events that we have here at the Colne Valley Railway. But as always guys, if you do enjoy what you see on this channel, please do hit the thumbs up. If this is your first time here, please do subscribe, and as always, any feedback please leave it in the comment section down below. But enough of that, let's get into what's been going on around here at the Colne Valley Railway. So this is probably looking a little bit different from the last update. Now the track which I mentioned in the last video, which currently has the two class 43 power cars sat on, that was the siding extension that we'd worked on. Now just in front of the camera here you'll see our new track, which as I mentioned in the last video is part of the reconnection plan to get connected up to engineering. Now at the time of recording this, we've just got 43 feet from the end of the track work we've done here to reconnect it with the end there where you can see the Mark 1 BG. That then means we can get that out and get it off to its new owners. Then after that we'll slew over and work our way down the bits of stock that are sat in the isolated sidings.
At the time of recording, our annual mini rail gala is in full swing, including 7 visiting locos on our 7¼ gauge track, as well as some traction engines of all sizes, a vintage bus and an outing for some newly repainted rolling stock. Elsewhere, the S&T team continue with their next phase of the level crossing upgrade, adding illuminated indicators to each gate, allowing the public to alert the signaller that they are waiting to cross. The estates team have been busy painting the exterior of the coach, as well as some more progress being made on the signal box. Why not make the most of the nice weather by enjoying some of the local wildlife on our woodland walk, now open over the next few months, as well as the flower beds that really brighten up the station.
On its last trip out, when we were doing brake van rides on the last opening day, the shunter actually radioed over to ask if anyone was missing a compressor belt. So after checking the O3s, realising it wasn't that, I then realised there's a possibility it might be one of mine. And in fact it was one of the compressor belts, which obviously helps turn over this compressor for the main engine. The main air supply was snapped. The other 3 were still fine, but after speaking to the previous owner, they'd been on there for around 20 years, so they were long overdue replacement. And luckily Charles managed to find the exact same ones, obviously the modern day version of the exact ones that need to go on this compressor, and they go down to the main drive down there. So to get that on there, while they're all nice and tensioned now, I actually had to undo the 4 bolts, which meant this whole compressor was then loose. I then got the old belts off, new belts on, and then I had to ratchet strap it to the chassis just below me here to pull the compressor tight enough to get these bolts back in. As you can imagine, these were a lot less strained, shall we say, than the previous ones. So now there's a new set of 4 on there. I still need to do the 4 for the donkey engine, but that can be done at a later date, as I don't rely on the donkey engine as much as I should have to perhaps. But yeah, it's always important to make sure the compressor is running as best as possible, so that's another job ticked off the list. So while the loco arrived here in an operational state, there was one particular thing that didn't work, and I think that was due to it just being sat around for a long time. The material in there got clogged up, but the sanders, one of which the hole for filling the sand is just in front of me here inside the cab. There's one behind the camera, and then the other two are on the running boards, the running plates at the far end. Obviously 4 wheels, 4 sanders, but yeah, they were clogged up. So what I did was I opened them all up, got an industrial hoover, removed as much of the stuff as I could with the hoover. Then I had to get a small hammer in there and sort of chisel away at some of the larger bits that have kind of all got stuck together and stuck to the inside of the sort of sand storage area. But what I have done is, as I say, emptied them all out, and this one I've actually replaced and filled it back up with some lovely kiln dried sand. And as of the time of this video recording, I've only filled up one of them. I didn't realise how much sand you'd actually need to fill them up. But yeah, that took an entire bag of sand, and it's probably not even a third full. So that's something to think about when doing the other 3. But they do work somewhat. However, I am still getting issues with the actual pipe that runs down to the wheel. The sand leaves here, but it doesn't make it all the way. And I think I'm gonna have to get some kind of long, thin brush, almost like the tube cleaning brushes that you get on the smaller scales. Something like that, just to get it all the way up from where it comes out of the wheel, and hopefully clear out any cobwebs and things like that that's stopping the sand, because the sand leaves here, and but then if you give the tubes a tap or a kick, all the sand will then come out, but it's just getting from here to there. So that's something I still need to sort out. But other than that, they are now working, which is good, and it was a job that did need doing, because obviously being a smaller engine, only 4 wheels, only 20 tonnes, that extra bit of sand helps the grip and obviously the traction when it comes to pulling slightly heavier pieces of rolling stock. So yeah, that's a job done. As I say, get the tube cleaned out and that'll all be good to go. So, talking of jobs that really needed doing, this was definitely one of them. Now, with my windows on the Ruston, they are completely detachable, or they were completely detachable, which meant that when it rained, water would pass through the gap underneath this frame, all the way along the side panel, down the side panel, onto the wooden floor, therefore making the wooden floor deteriorate quicker than I can fix it. So, this issue has now been resolved. I did put a post on Facebook asking what the best method would be, whether it be to actually bolt the panel to the bolt the frame to the panel, or some other method. And the best method I received a comment on was to use this type of roof sealant, this gutter sealant that you get. It's a flexible, it dries sort of flexible, so it doesn't harden, which means that if I do want to take it off, I can remove it, scrape that off, and then reapply it when I put the frames back on. But what I've done here is I've put a seal all around 3 sides, meaning I can still let air circulate through the gap at the top. But it just means along here now, no water gets through down onto the cab floor. I've also replaced the windows, the old, where there was acrylic on there. I've updated the acrylic with some new stuff, just so all the scratches and things on there are no longer there, but I hope at some point in the future to then replace them with glass. When I took this off, I took the opportunity to sand it back all the way to the metal and round the inside of both the cab side and the frame. I put some anti-corrosive primer on there. I then added the sealant, and I then tightened it as much as possible against the panel, between the panel and the frame, and now they're pretty secure. So I'm very pleased with how that's come out, and it does mean obviously when we get large amounts of downpour in the wet weather, that this won't now fill up with water. There is every occasionally a bit now and then that comes through behind the plastic glass, or plastic acrylic, but unfortunately that's something I can't help without replacing it with some glass. So yeah, pretty pleased with that, and with that let's move on to the next job that's been done. Right, so while we're in the cab, I'm just going to quickly run you through some of the improvements that I need to make as part of the inspection, some of the recommendations I was given, and also talk to you a little bit about the process on this side of the cylinder as to what happened when it came to testing. Right, so in front of us here we have the bulkhead for the starter tank. Now it's quite deceiving, it doesn't look like there's much to it, but this cylinder is actually quite large and it runs 3/4 of the way along the engine bay inside the front of the engine there. Now, one of the recommendations was to actually add a safety valve into one of these points here. Now, I'll explain the reason why. If you see here, the pipe coming up here, this is where the air charges. When this is open, the air comes up here through this T-piece here and into the cylinder. So this is open and that's charging. When it reaches 300 psi, see it's just sat below it there, this safety valve here blows off. But obviously when this is closed, the safety valve is no longer connected to the starter tank. So one of the recommendations was to add a safety valve here, and that just means that if there's a fire or anything like that and this expands, there will be a place for the air to release. So obviously that's something that needs to be done, and I have got one of them ordered. From the same place, I'm going to order a couple of these valves as well. Now, while these valves have worked for the last year and a bit with no problems whatsoever, they do need upgrading, as we couldn't find a way to verify what pressure they're actually designed to hold at. So just going to get some modern day ones in up to spec, and therefore when the next inspection comes around we'll have no issues with any of the system on this side here. But as I say, it is important to remember that while it is charging, there is a safety valve, or there is a safety precaution, if you like, of some state, that if this was to go over 300, if you leave it for a bit while it's charging and it is to go over 300, we did test this and it did work correctly, so there isn't the chance that it charges to the point where it explodes. We actually had it pressure tested, I think around 450, and it held that for half an hour, no problem. So I have full confidence that this is in good functioning order, and the certification as well to back it that this is all good to go. Now, when he did his test to look inside, we took off these pieces here, well, this one here I think. He then put a very small camera through there, looked through the inside of the tank just to make sure there wasn't any heavy corrosion or deterioration, and it came back all good. The only thing he recommended was that when it is in use, once I'm finished, just opening the valve underneath the cylinder to make sure there's no water trapped in there, any condensation or things like that. Make sure that is released at the end of the day. So some of you may have seen, we actually had some visitors down to the railway. Now, we had Accurascale, we had Hornby Magazine, and we had Jamie Goodman to come and do a video about the sound recordings, as well as do the actual sound recordings themselves. Now, the day ran really, really well. Hopefully the guys who visited really enjoyed their day out. And we had the Ruston running up and down the line, as you might have seen some of the drone footage earlier on in the video done by Richard Watson of Accurascale. Now, everything ran fine except the donkey engine, which we couldn't get to start for the life of us. We kept trying and trying and trying. However, it turned out after some further investigation that there was an issue with the spark plug and a couple of other bits as well, but they have now been rectified, which means I can now get on with recording those last bits of sound for Jamie as he puts together the sound file for the upcoming O-Gauge 88DS by Accurascale. So that's going to be pretty exciting. So hopefully if you guys got one on pre-order and it's sound fitted, you're going to be hearing the sounds of my Ruston in there. So on the topic of people visiting, we actually most recently had Lawrie from Lawrie's Mechanical Marvels come down to the site, and that's because he did a little video on some of the stock we still have for sale. So if you do want to check that out, I will leave a link to that in the description below, as well as a card on the screen. But yes, once again, thank you Lawrie for coming down and showing off our stock a little bit. And if you have come from his channel and subscribed, then I do appreciate it, and hopefully you enjoy some of the content available here on the channel. So another update on the social media side of things here at the railway is our new live streams. Now, you may have seen things similar like Railcam. A lot of other railways have started doing their own cameras as well. Ruslip Lido now do their own live streaming, and I think North Yorkshire Moors or Severn Valley, one of the two, have also got their own dedicated cameras running live all the time as well. Now, we've decided to do the same. We have started upgrading a lot of our security systems here at the railway, so there's a lot more cameras installed, but two of them in particular we actually take that data from and use to run the live streams. We actually have one behind us here, as well as the crossing camera. We also have a camera actually looking over both platforms as well, and that is that one up there. So the idea of these cameras is basically to allow people who perhaps can't get to site or they live in other countries across the world. It means that everyone can then come and tune in on days like our mini rail gala, and at the time we're recording this, we're just a couple of days away from our HST there as well. So if you tune in on the live stream, you can watch all the action as it happens from the comfort of your own home. You can also donate as well on the live streams, and your donations will appear as and when they happen on the screen as well. Any donations made throughout these live streams will actually come straight into the charity, so any donations made are very much appreciated. And of course, if you're a channel member, you can also access all the live streams after they've happened in the members only video section. So if you do want to do that, I'll also leave a link to becoming a member in the description below, and you can do that from as little as 99p a month. So that's where we're going to leave it for this mini update on the Ruston, as well as some of the bits that have been going on here at the Colne Valley Railway. Now, don't forget, if you want to check out the live streams and be notified as to when I upload, just click the little notification bell just below the video here, and you'll get email notifications as and when I upload and as and when the live streams are available. If this is your first time here, please do subscribe, and of course hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. Any feedback, as always, leave it in the comment section down below. And with that, I will see you all in the next video. Cheers.